Welcome to the Academy, cadets. I am Grand Admiral Horath Drak, and I will teach you how to rule a galactic empire. When you graduate, you will know how to colonize a planet, build up your economy, design your ships, win wars, and everything else the Academy thinks you should know. There's a lot to talk about, so shut up and listen. And you two fools in the backbenches, drop down and give me 20. I do not care who you are, I just care about how much you know when you leave this place. So let's get to it. In previous versions of Stellaris, we had a tile-based planetary economy system, which meant a planet could have a certain amount of planetary tiles up to a maximum of 25. And one pop, one unit of population, could work exactly one tile. There would be natural resources on the tiles, and you could also build buildings on the tiles, and the pops would work those buildings or try to mine those resources. That system is completely gone. Now we have a pops and jobs based economy system, where you're no longer limited how many pops can live on your planets, but your pops have to be supplied with jobs. So the core of the new system is pops and the jobs that they're working at, and you can grow your planets into the hundreds of pops if you actually want to create huge city planets, very densely populated areas. So we'll talk about pops and we'll talk about jobs in this video. Let's talk about pops in Stellaris 2.2. If you're new to the game, a pop is one unit of population in the game. It's an abstraction. I think it represents about 1 billion real people. But yeah, the pop is the functional unit of the population. If we click on the planet, we see the planetary overview. We see that we have 28 people on this planet filling 28 jobs on the planet. And if we move on to the population tab, we can see the current pop that is growing, which is a new peacock, because we have no other species on the planet. If you want other species to grow, you can left click on this if you have more than one, and you can actually select the preferred species for this. Currently we only have that one species. There can only be one species growing at the same time too, and then you can also have a robot assembling at the same time. And growth is really important in Stellaris 2.2 because the amount of pops is your economic power, because amount of pops equals the amount of jobs that you can fill, and the amount of filled jobs equals the resource output of your empire. So pops are really important. Having more pops than your neighbors is a clear advantage. Unless your pops are maybe super unhappy, that is definitely a factor that is in there, but in general, having more pops is better. That is kind of the metric that you want to optimize your empire towards, instead of the past where we were optimizing towards having the most amount of minerals. Now it is having a high pop growth and a lot of happy pops in your empire. So these pops, they are still represented in the game. Each of the pops, they belong to one or another social stratum. So we have the ruler stratum, we have the specialist stratum, and the worker stratum, and they will basically be put into one of these strata by the job that they're working. If you are a miner, you belong to the worker stratum. And depending on where they are on the social scale, they will also have more political power or less. So just a miner in our society over here, which is working with a stratified economy, we're authoritarians. So we kind of believe that the state should rule with an iron fist and that authority comes from the top. If you're playing an egalitarian society, this might be very different, and your workers might have like almost the same power as your rulers. But here, this new peacock, this authoritarian new peacock, has 0.75 political power, whereas if we go to our ruler pop, this one pop has 10 political power. So a lot more to say than one of our lower level guys. And depending on the political power, their happiness affects the planet. So if we go to pop approval rating, you see that our rulers are 71% happy, and they have 41% of the political power on the planet. Our specialists are 61% happy and have 29%, and our workers are 46% happy, but they only have 29% of the political power on the planet, so they don't matter as much, which is interesting. Now, depending on the job they work, they are in one of these strata. You can see these numbers over here that represent the same ethics on a population working the same job. So we have 4 new peacocks working as clerks that are authoritarians. We have 2 of them being spiritualists, and we have some of them being xenophiles. And these strata are somewhat static. So what does that mean? If we create some unemployment in the specialist stratum just by disabling the civilian industry building, you'll see that we end up with 2 unemployed pops. And if we look at these guys, They will not just take up any worker job. Like, they've been working a nice, cushy artisan job, and suddenly they are told to work the mines. That's not how this works. So these guys will take 1800 days. You can see stratum specialist demoting to work in 1800 days. So in 6 years, these guys are going to consider that they maybe should go into the mines instead, or take any other worker job that is open. So promoting people from the worker stratum into the specialist stratum by offering them free jobs happens almost instantly. But if you want to do the reverse process and you maybe have open worker jobs, you are maybe running out of minerals or out of food, then it might actually take a while. It might be that instead of the specialists working those jobs, they're just newly grown pops that take up the worker jobs instead of the specialists actually lowering themselves to do that kind of thing. And if you have like a ruler job that becomes unemployed, things are even more dire. These guys can take 10 years and more just to consider maybe doing something else. And they will still continue to take their food and their consumer goods upkeep, even if they are not working, even if they're unemployed. So that kind of is an interesting thing to consider when you're thinking about how you use your pops and your jobs. Let's talk about the needs of your pops in Stellaris 2.2. Every pop has 5 needs. Let's demonstrate that with one of our ruler pops here. So they need a certain amount of upkeep. They need food and they need consumer goods. So food, if they're biological pops, they need to eat to survive. And consumer goods, that is everything from TVs to toasters to whatnot. All the things that are non-food are consumer goods. They're consuming it to live. Then they have a need for housing, because they need to live somewhere. That kind of can change depending on the society that you're running. For example, drones in a hive mind need very little housing. Slaves need much less housing than your rulers here. But in general, it's like around 1. Depends a little bit. If your species is solitary, they're also going to need more housing. All that kind of stuff. Then you have the amenities need. That is like the 4th need. And this represents all the infrastructure on the planet, let's say transportation or, I don't know, water, all that kind of stuff. So that is amenities usage. If you have free amenities, that is going to positively impact your citizen pop happiness, which in turn is going to increase your planetary stability and all that. If you have free housing, that is going to increase your immigration pool. So pops can immigrate or emigrate from your planets, so come in or go out. And if you have people coming in, then this is going to increase the growth of your pop, and if you have people going out, that is going to reduce the growth up to the point where you actually have population decline on the planet because people are moving away from the planet. And the last of the 5 needs is they need a job. I mean, you can see that they are already being classified by the social stratum that they live in, so they want to go in one of these strata, and that is why you want to have your unemployment down to 0, ideally. So always have jobs that people can take, because otherwise they are going to turn to crime and they're going to be very unhappy, and both is going to reduce your stability. So 5 needs: housing, amenities, they need a job, they need food, and they need consumer goods. So let's talk about stability and crime on your planets. If we have a look at this planet, which is from a multiplayer game that I played recently, very advanced game state, we're in 2344. We have 91 pops on this planet. They're all super happy. They had 100% happiness. And that influences the stability of this planet. So stability will either give you increased resources from jobs and more trade value and pull more people on your planet, or the reverse. So get less resources from jobs, the trade value is going to be reduced, and the immigration pool is actually going to turn into an emigration pool. So people will move away from the planet if it falls below 50. As you can see, my guys are super happy, and that's why we're getting 30% additional resources from jobs and a 30% increase to our trade value, which is really, really valuable. Look at the resource production on the planet. We have a base. Look at the technician jobs. We have a base production of 40 energy credits, but what actually happens is we manage to churn out 88.40 because we have all those modifiers. We're psionic, we get 25% from buildings, 30% from the high stability, some from our governor, the empire has a bonus, and then it's also a Gaia world. So you can really do a lot with your planets at this point. So yeah, having enough amenities, having enough housing, and having jobs for all your people
will make it so that your planets are fairly happy. There's not going to be any crime. You can have like a corporate thing on your planet that increases crime. If you are being settled by a criminal syndicate, you can attack these guys, but you can also just go ahead and build some enforcer jobs, or if you have access to it, the Psycho over here, which allows you to get telepaths, also does the same thing, just giving you some crime reduction over here. These enforcer specialists is what do that too. You get some of those with the basic capital building on your planet, and then you can also build additional precincts, is what it's called over here, precinct houses, which gives you more enforcer jobs to keep the crime low, because crime negatively affects your stability, and you kind of want your stability as high as possible. So we've talked about one part of the equation of the new Stellaris 2.2 economy, which is pops. Now let's talk about the second part, which is jobs. Every pop needs to work a job, and the main part of your resource income is going to be from jobs. The other part is going to be stations, if we look at this. So we have a base income that every empire gets, then we have stations, and then we have jobs. And jobs are going to be the majority of your resource generation as the game goes on, because you get more pops. Let's look at this world. There are three ways that you can get jobs. You can either get them via districts. Those will provide worker level jobs. You can have buildings to provide jobs. Those are mostly specialist or administrator type jobs. And then you can also get them if you reach certain population thresholds. You can see that if we reach 100 pops, we get an additional merchant job. I get that because I finished the prosperity tree over here, which if you finish it, allows you to get 1 merchant job per 50 population. So these 3 ways you have, and then you have 3 types of jobs. You have worker jobs, specialist jobs, and ruler jobs. The worker jobs normally have no pre-product, so they just create something. They create food by just farming. They don't have a pre-product for that. The specialist jobs normally have a pre-product. So for example, our researchers over here, they create research out of consumer goods. And then the ruler jobs also often don't have any pre-products, but they have like a higher upkeep in terms of consumer goods and all that kind of stuff, and they're normally very effective at what they do. And there are very few ruler jobs in like an empire. We have 91 pops, and there are only 8 ruler pops on this planet. There are 2 ways to influence the jobs that are being worked on your planet besides creating new jobs via building new districts and new buildings. And that is by either prioritization or by disabling buildings and shuffling workers around that way. So first we're going to talk about the prioritization in the worker stratum. In here I have built an additional district, an additional mining district. So I have 30 jobs for 28 population. And you can see that the vacancies are inside the mining jobs. So in the mining jobs there are 9 clerks for farmers, 4 miners, and 2 technicians. And maybe I need those mining jobs being worked. So what I do is I go to the population tab, I go to workers, and I deprioritize one of the other jobs that I don't need right now. So let's say I don't need as many clerks, so I'll just get rid of 2 of those workplaces temporarily, and these guys will instantly switch to mining. So far so easy. Within the same stratum, that actually works quite nicely. The second way to prioritize certain jobs over others is just by turning off building. So I'm building some research labs over here. Maybe I think I don't need the civilian industries, maybe I have like a big surplus or something, so I can just disable it. The 2 jobs connected to that building go away. We're gonna have some unemployment happen over here, so those are those 2 specialist artisans. And now that the new research lab is built, they take up those jobs and we have no change in the social order whatsoever.
You've reached the end of this lecture. Well done, cadet. If you found it really helpful, leave a like. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section so I can answer them. If you want to learn more, consider subscribing to this channel. And if you found it really helpful and want to support me doing more of this, then consider becoming my patron on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and I hope I see you in one of my other videos. Cheers!